I followed the director's orders, ignored contract details, and soon discovered a $30M liability in a $10K contract. Major chaos ensued. Initially, I shared this story in the subreddit dedicated to malicious compliance, but I discovered this forum through comments. I am employed by a federal contractor tasked with acquiring or bundling hardware, software, and other resources needed by various government organizations. Additionally, I review contracts to ensure they are financially viable and legally sound. Essentially, my job involves ensuring profitability while also safeguarding our legal interests. The contracts I handle can vary significantly, ranging anywhere from $5,000 to $40 million. Last year, our company underwent a restructuring, which involved terminating several employees and increasing the workload for those who remained while keeping salaries minimal. We are a small organization with fewer than 200 staff members, striving to maintain our government contracts amidst the looming threat of larger companies like Amazon Web Services taking our place within the next decade. Our government clients appreciate partnering with us because we focus solely on serving them and provide better service than larger contractors who seem indifferent. They laid off 30 individuals from my team of 50, leaving only 20 of us responsible for the workload originally meant for 50, all at the same compensation. We are salaried employees, not paid hourly, and we do not receive sales bonuses, which is a key aspect of this narrative. I have developed a habit of thoroughly reviewing every document, dedicating hours to contracts, even those with only a few $1,000s at stake. The process for selecting government vendors is slow and extremely risk-averse, which means that many clients begin with smaller contracts and can escalate to larger agreements, potentially reaching 8 or 9 figures if all goes well. Since the layoffs, I found it increasingly challenging to manage the work volume, leading to a backlog of contracts. The sales director from a different team was displeased with my pace, seeing it as slow, especially as I was diligent in identifying any misleading promises the sales team attempted to make to clients. The government clients appreciated my honesty regarding our capabilities and limitations, which was another reason the director resented me. He believed I was undermining sales. However, almost all of my clients were repeat customers, some for over 10 years. For instance, the sales team wanted a school district to purchase outdated Dell Windows laptops while the entire state was transitioning to new, less expensive Chromebooks. Schools have tight budgets, and any purchases they make typically last for over 5 years. The sales team was pushing expensive, unnecessary products to secure higher bonuses, all while charging the client nearly $1 million for providing IT support for issues arising from outdated hardware. During discussions with the school district, I highlighted examples of state governments in the Northeast that were purchasing Chromebooks, allowing them to save money and future-proof their hardware. My role was to secure the best quotes for clients and build trust to secure contracts lasting 5 or 10 years. Consequently, the school district opted for Chromebooks, which were 40% less expensive and had its support costs reduced by over 80% compared to what we initially quoted. While this cost the sales team a few $1,000s in bonuses, it secured a 5-year contract with the district. The sales director was frustrated with me, claiming I was working too slowly on smaller contracts, and he chastised me in front of our manager. The manager showed little concern, failing to defend me while asking, "Why don't you follow the sales director's guidance and stop worrying about minor contracts?" I replied that small contracts can evolve into larger ones, thus warranting my attention. I explained that mistakes made in smaller agreements could jeopardize us if they later scale up. At this point, he began to shout, insisting that I did not understand contracts, claiming he had been in this field for 5 years and earned more in 1 month than I did in a year. He insisted I should heed his advice without questioning it, which I found insulting given my financial struggles living in a shared apartment, while he drove a luxury vehicle and dined out lavishly with government officials. I requested that the sales director send an email outlining suggestions for enhancing my performance. He responded rudely, saying, "Can you not even remember what I just said in the meeting?" His email instructed me to avoid reviewing contracts under $100,000 and to trust the sales team to conduct their due diligence. In response, I copied my manager on an email stating that I had concerns about creating potential liabilities for the company in the future. I asked him to confirm whether the sales team would indeed handle financial and legal compliance for all small contracts, and that I should cease reviewing those contracts under $100,000 unless otherwise directed. This was invaluable. Cue malicious compliance. Instead of spending 2 hours on small contracts, I dedicated merely 10 minutes to each, thus clearing the backlog and allowing me to leave by 6:30 p.m. When a $10,000 contract arrived, I noticed some discrepancies that indicated we were offering 30% rebates to our software providers. This was a practice we had discontinued 5 years ago, as we now only provide rebates between 5% and 10%. Additionally, I was aware that the government client had recently received a substantial budget and was inclined to spend. There was a significant possibility that this $10,000 client could transition to a $100 million contract, meaning a 30% rebate would equate to $30 million on top of standard costs. Yet, I remembered the sales director's remark about not fussing over smaller contracts. So, 10 minutes later, I sent an email stating, "No issues detected based on compliance check by the sales team." As I previously mentioned, the government contract process is slow. Nobody raised concerns about the 30% rebate issue since it pertained to a mere $10,000 client. 10 months later, the state government approached us expressing their desire to work together, intending to secure at least the same terms or improved ones for a new $50 million contract. This contract became the largest in our company's history. The sales director was eager to shake hands and assured the client we would provide the same or better terms. The government has the legal authority to purchase more under their existing contracts, so the sales director had no reservations in making such assurances. Given the scale of the contract, all departments, legal, IT, and finance, were involved in the discussions over this one agreement. Everyone spent 3 months working on it. The sales team was excited at the prospect of receiving million-dollar bonuses. I do not receive sales bonuses, as my role requires me to protect both customers and the company. The finance team completed their analysis and determined that the company would lose $8 million as a result and would not turn a profit. This revelation shocked everyone, as the sales director had committed to a deal without consulting us, and we could not retract our offer. Modifying contract terms is typically frowned upon by the government, and they have legal agreements stating, "Nothing will change." We were legally bound to provide the same terms to the government for 3 years. Consequently, our legal team advised that we would need to absorb the losses on our balance sheet. The CEO convened a significant meeting in an upscale conference room fitted with large television screens, where everyone was tasked with identifying a scapegoat for the debacle. Every department head, manager, and individual involved in the contract was called in. The sales director had to explain to his team why they would not be receiving bonuses for this major contract, which had consumed over 3 months of effort. Eventually, the legal and finance departments convened and communicated their findings. We had incurred losses due to the 30% rebate clause. The sales director exploded in anger, blaming me publicly and ordering me to gather my belongings in front of approximately 30 colleagues, followed by disparaging my performance despite my consistent record of 100% customer satisfaction. I calmly opened my laptop, connected it to the display, and pulled up his email on the 3 large screens that detailed his instructions for me to cease reviewing minor contracts. As all 30 individuals read his email with muted amusement, I awaited the sales director's reaction. He erupted in fury, asserting that I had misinterpreted his email and was woefully inadequate in my role. I then scrolled to where he had disregarded my warning regarding potential liabilities to the company and explicitly instructed me to overlook that concern. His face paled as he recognized his mistake. In his frantic state, he began to voice racist remarks aimed at our IT consultants in Vietnam, losing composure entirely. Aftermath, I was instructed to devote 2-3 hours on each contract, and the company eventually realized it was more cost-effective to hire approximately 20 individuals like me at a salary of $70,000 annually rather than incur significant losses on contracts. Our team has now grown to 40 members, still fewer than 50, but sufficient to manage the contract volume. Due to the financial losses incurred, the sales director was required to return his bonus from the previous year, as he had a clawback clause with the company, meaning if he made a significant error, he had to reimburse them. This resulted in the sales director owing nearly $300,000 and subsequently losing his position. Present day, he then filed a lawsuit against our company for wrongful termination. We were recently informed that he lost the case and now owes us an additional $200,000 in legal fees. As it stands, he owes over $500,000 to our company. TLDR. The company terminated employees, and the sales director mistreated me when I struggled to carry the workload of 3 individuals. He dismissed my cautions that mistakes in small contracts could result in millions of dollars in losses for the company. Ultimately, he caused substantial financial losses and was fired. He attempted to sue the company and now faces over $500,000 in debts to us. End of TLDR. Update 1. Many may wonder why I continue to occupy this role, which offers compensation below state wages, especially when I might earn a higher salary elsewhere. I assist government clients to procure quality products from various hardware and software companies, ensuring they do not overpay or become reliant on a single large firm. It gives me immense satisfaction to save taxpayers' money and help these organizations. During the COVID-19 pandemic, numerous state governments shifted to remote operations, maintaining governmental functions via local Zoom meetings. However, there was a budget freeze due to the pandemic, stemming from the economy's slowdown, while relief funding was months away. This scenario placed the sales team in a compromising position, with helpless government clients willing to sign anything to receive essential remote hardware and software. I perceived this as exploitation, but despite my introverted nature and lack of initiative for promotions, I successfully persuaded the CEO to provide free 60-day trials of expensive hardware, charging only for installation and delivery. Although a substantial risk, we secured insurance to cover potential damages. I convinced the CEO that this was a moment for us to demonstrate our commitment as partners to the government during a critical time. The sales team was displeased for a month, but eventually acknowledged that all these free clients began contacting us for paid contracts, opting for us over companies significantly larger than ours that typically secured contracts through lobbying or lavishly wining and dining government decision-makers with things like Super Bowl tickets. While I cannot legally disclose the specific government entities involved, I can confirm that various agencies in the state government of New York and Florida utilized this trial program during the pandemic's initial wave. I may consider changing jobs soon since we received a 3% salary increase amidst the current market conditions, all while the company has nearly doubled its revenue in recent years. Update 2. I just recalled another incident that intensified the sales team's animosity towards me. This transpired during the COVID-19 pandemic while we were working from home, and I was acclimating to using Zoom. We had a telecommunications contract with a state government, and during a Zoom call to discuss this contract, the sales team was attempting to escalate the client's telecom expenses from $60,000 monthly to $300,000. I objected, arguing that the rise in calls during the pandemic did not substantiate such a drastic price increase, and proposed that we raise the charge to $100,000 monthly instead, which would adequately cover costs and improve our profit margin percentage. However, the sales team began laughing, arguing that if the customer was willing to pay more, why was I being so vocal about it? Leadership asked me to remain silent and moved forward with the $300,000 contract. I then focused on other tasks and minimized the Zoom application. I do not end Zoom calls. Rather, the meeting administrator concludes them. As everyone said their goodbyes, I naively assumed that the call had ended. I vented my frustrations by remarking that these salespeople behaved like wolves during a national crisis. A co-worker messaged me a few minutes later to indicate that everyone had overheard my comments. No one confronted or complained about me, but I sensed I had offended them. I also want to clarify that not all sales team members are like this. Most of the newer sales representatives are enthusiastic about learning and focus on customer interactions rather than pushing products. However, new sales representatives typically manage smaller or lower priority contracts, while larger contracts are directly assigned to sales leadership.